Hello and welcome to Duel 52. Duel 52 is a free card game for 2 players inspired by Magic the Gathering and Hearthstone. All you need is a standard deck of cards, the rules and a friend. In this video, we'll set up a game, run through a few turns and learn how to play. So to set up, we'll deal 3 cards face down to each player. This is player 1. This is player 2. These cards are your base cards and they form the 3 lanes of battle. So west, mid and east. And in these lanes, players will play cards, the cards will battle, and to win the game, you need to win 2 of the 3 lanes. Your base cards are dormant, so they're not active until the draw pile here is empty. The draw pile is shared, so it's a very balanced game. So until that time, these cards, they can't do anything. They can't attack. They're simply marking where the lanes are. So that's the first part of setup. We deal our base cards, 3 to each player. We then deal 5 cards to each player's hand, which you look at. And the last step of setting up is to take out 10 cards. This makes the game shorter, and it also means you can't count cards, and every game is a little bit different. So this is our discard pile over here. So we've taken our 10 out. Now I've got some pre-prepared hands. So now the game starts. Both players have their hands, and player 1 will go first. So on your turn, you have 3 actions. On the very first turn of the game, the first player just has 2 actions. So what's an action? Let's go through that. So here's our hand. Playing a card is 1 action. All cards are played face down, and when they're face down, they can't attack or do anything, but they can be attacked. So here's our first action, playing this card. Our second action, we'll flip it. So flipping cards activates them. That takes an action. So that's our 2 actions for the first turn, very first turn of the game. So we flip this 2. So every rank, the 13 ranks of cards, has a different power. They do different things. So what does the 2 do? The 2 draws you a card into your hand, and then you discard a card from your hand. So the 2 essentially is a way of upgrading the cards in your hand. We've already got a 4, so we'll just discard this 4. And that's the end of player 1's first turn. Also, at the start of your turn, you draw a card, which I forgot to do, but there we go. So player 2, now it's their turn. They draw a card to their hand. Now player 2 has the normal 3 actions. So player 2 is going to play a card into mid and play 2 cards into east. So that's their 3 actions. 1, 2, 3. They've played 3 cards. end of their turn. Back to player one, draw a card. And now player one has 3 actions. So if we look at the lanes here strategically, player one's ahead in this lane. You need to win 2 lanes to win. So of these 2 lanes, there's 2 cards here, there's 1 card here. This one looks easier to fight for. So we're going to play a card here. First action. Flip it, second action. It's a 4. What does a 4 do? A 4 has foresight, and that means you get to look at any face down card. So we're going to look at this card. It's another 2. You can also look at the base cards, which is very strong because it allows you to know where to play. So we've played, flipped, used the 4's power, and now we're going to do an attack. So there's an enemy card here. We can use attacking takes 1 action. So we'll attack this. Each card has 2 health, and each card does 1 damage. So the 4 does 1 damage to this card here. And when it takes damage, we turn it sideways to indicate that it's damaged. Each card can only attack once per turn, which is important. So you can't outright kill a card just with 1 card. And we'll continue. So that's the end of player 1's turn. Player 2 will draw a card. We will flip our 2 because we don't want it to die without using its power. As we know, the 2 draws you a card, and then from your hand you discard a card. So we'll discard that 5. Now, so we've only used 1 action. We will use our second action to attack this 4. So the 2 hits the 4. The 4 takes 1 damage and is tapped, turned sideways to indicate that. So we've flipped, attacked. We've got 1 more action. We'll flip one of these. The 6 does something to the cards here. As there is no cards here, it doesn't do anything right now. You can read the rules to find out what that does. So that is the end of player 2's turn. Back to player 1, draw a card. So here we can use 1 action to hit this 2, which only has 1 health left, and that 2 dies and gets discarded. We have 2 more actions from our hand. I see something useful, so we're going to play this 7 and flip. The 7 heals all of the cards on your side. So he heals that 4 back to full health. And now player 1 is comfortably ahead in the mid lane. That's all our actions. We hit the 2, we played and flipped a 7. So back to player 2, we'll draw a card. They're now behind in both these lanes. So similar to before, it's easier to fight in this lane because there's only 1 card versus this lane. So we're going to play an ace. So we play the ace, flip it, and what the ace does is it gets you an extra action, plus it can attack twice on its first turn. So we play it, flip it, get an extra action. Now we've got 2 actions left, and it can hit this 2 twice and kill it. So the ace is very powerful, can kill a card from your hand. And that's our whole turn, but we've swung this lane back into favour. So back to player 1. We'll just do a couple more turns and then I'll talk about the end game. So player one, again, I think they want to keep contesting this west lane now. So we're going to play an 8. Play and flip an 8. Now, an 8 is part of a group of cards that doesn't have an active flip power. It does nothing when you flip it over, like the 7 heals and the 4 looks at a card. The 8 has a passive power, so if anything hits this 8, they take damage. It has Retaliate is the power's name, and it's basically a Thorns mechanic. So it's a very strong card. It's a slower card, but it's a strong lane presence. So we're going to play, flip, and we're going to hit this ace, which means that if this ace wants to hit us next turn, it will actually die, and we'll take 1 damage. So we've made a strong play in that lane. Back to player 2. Time to do something drastic. So player 2 is going to play 2 cards into this lane. This ace is still damaged. Let's move these over. So the game kind of gets bigger as you play. More cards are played into lanes. So we've gone 1, 2 actions. Our third action is turning over the 5. And what the 5 does is it flips any other face down cards in your lane. So for free, we get to flip this jack. It doesn't flip your base card unless you are in the end game, which means when this draw pile is empty. So we've turned up our 5, and it's flipped this jack for us. So the jack is a very strong card. It has 3 health, and it also has taunt, which means it needs to be killed before the other cards in this lane. So it's essentially protecting this ace now from being hit. If this 8 wants to attack, it has to attack the jack, and the jack has 3 health, so when you tap it, you turn it 45 degrees, then 90 degrees, and then it dies. So that's a very big play. Player 2 doesn't have many cards left now, but that's fine. They've essentially made a lock on that lane for the moment. So one last turn for player 1, and then we'll move into the end game. We're now losing this lane, so we're going to make a move. We're going to play and flip a queen in the east lane, and the queen allows us to move a card to her lane. She's the only card that has that power, so she's very strong and can help you swing into a different lane if you start losing. So player 2 is committed heavily over here. We're just going to avoid all of that and start fighting over here with our strong queen, who brings our strong 8, which is still full health, and as we said, deals damage to anything that attacks it. So that's probably enough powers. There's a lot more. Every card has a different power, and yeah, you can read those on the website. I'll just talk quickly about the endgame. So the game proceeds. We play cards into lanes, the cards battle, and once we get through this draw pile, let's say the last card is picked up. So the draw pile is empty now. So now it's we're in the end game. And what that means is that your base cards, those cards that we dealt at the start of the game, are now normal cards. They can flip, they can attack, and they can be attacked. Previous to this, they cannot be attacked. So these guys can't kill this until the end game. And once you're in the end game, we finish the battle with whatever's on the board and whatever's in your hand. And 2 lanes, whoever wins 2 lanes wins. So player 2 has probably won this lane. Player 1 has won this mid lane. And then this third lane would probably be the most contested lane where we would battle it out and the cards would hit each other and die until one card was left. So player 1 wins mid and east, so they win the game. And that's a bit of an overview. If you're interested in learning more, visit duel52.com for the full instructions. It's all free. If you're already on the site, just scroll down and you can read. There's printable instructions, and there's also little quick reference instructions that you can cut out that fit in a deck of cards. Cool. Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoy.